SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Second Amendment Outdoors in Corinth, America's largest online firearms and accessory mall, has the best deals for you to stay loaded and ready, as well as covered head to toe in all the best brands. Whatever the season, whatever your game, our focus is all in the name. SecondAmendmentOutdoors.com, where freedom meets the field.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning, Rhino. Somebody turn the air conditioner on. Gee whiz.
Yeah, it was actually cold enough for me to put on pants. Still got the short sleeve shirt on.
Okay. Yeah, that's our litmus test for the temperature. When Rhino's got pants on, I can't see his legs, but below his knees. Man, I went and braved it yesterday afternoon, played a little golf with my buddies, and I was fine. It was windy, of course, as the front swept through the state. But about 3 o'clock, this is how you know that it's winter time or we're beyond daylight saving time. About 3 o'clock, that sun gets low in the sky, and you're in the shade a lot. And there's a significant difference between being in the shade and being in the sun. And that wind just kicked up as well. And it was cold and hard to hit a golf ball when it's cold like that. But we braved it, and it's that time of year. But you told us this morning, 70 degrees come Wednesday, correct?
Oh, yeah. It'll be right back up to average fall temperatures in the Magnolia State, because this is a bit below average for this time of year. I think on the chart I saw something like everywhere north of I-20 was between 8 and 15 degrees colder than average.
Wow. Okay.
Well, so, yeah, it's a bit chillier than we're used to for early to mid-November, but yeah, we'll be back to normal November Mississippi temperatures by Wednesday.
Okay. Well, as I recall, every year, like in the September time frame, there's always the prediction for the Gulf Stream pattern throughout the winter months. Right, I want to make sure I get this right. The El Nino and the La Nina, and it has to do with the position of the Gulf Stream as it drapes across the country. So the further north is the Gulf Stream, the warmer are the temperatures. Typically below the Gulf Stream, temperatures are warmer, and it's also drier. It's when that Gulf Stream moves south. I think that's the El Nino, if I'm not mistaken. And when that's the case, then we get a bunch of fronts move through. They travel on the Gulf Stream and move across our area, and that brings lots of rain. Every time one of those fronts comes through, typically there's rain associated. As I recall, isn't this predicted to be a La Nina year where the Gulf Stream stays north and thus fronts stay north, bypass us as they sweep across the country from west to east, and we're spared all the moisture I think I got that right. Is that right?
We're La Nina.
Yeah, okay. So I remembered it's La Nina, it's higher, the Gulf Stream's higher. El Nino, and I don't even know what that means. And I don't know why we use, I guess, Spanish, right, as part of our weather forecasting. I'm not honestly sure why that is the case. But nonetheless, I'm
fairly certain it means little boy and little girl.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not a little.
What the heck does that have to do with a Gulf Stream?
I don't remember. I remember learning it in the 90s when it first kind of came to when it joined the pop culture lexicon and you had Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live. Yo soy El Nino. I am El Nino.
Okay, I love it. Well, nonetheless, that's what's going on. And that I actually welcome. I'm not into these cold, rainy winter months. I'm looking forward to a little relief from that. That's what is on the way. Well, the big news, though, of course, is that it appears there is a breakthrough in Washington that the old federal government is going to reopen. Now, some people may think that's bad news. We'd rather just keep the government shut. You hear that a lot, certainly from folks on the right, just trying to call attention to the crazy size scope of the government and the spending associated with it. The big takeaway for me here, though, is that there are 8 Democrats who have broken with old Chuck Schumer, isn't he something, in supporting the continuing resolution. 8 of them did. And that has really got the Democrat Party, I think it's fair to say, is deeply fractured. So I think, I really do, that they were waiting for last week's elections. They have consumed and analyzed the results of those elections. And 8 of those Democrats decided that, yeah, it's time to get on board and support and join with Republicans in supporting ending the shutdown and reopening the government. And that is absolutely where we are. So, this is interesting. Totally interesting to me that this is the situation and that the Democrats ultimately broke. It was Senators Dick Durbin, Illinois, Tim Kaine, Virginia, Shaheen of New Hampshire, Hassan of New Hampshire, Cortez Masto, the Democrat from Nevada, Rosen from Nevada, our friend John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, and Angus King, who typically caucuses with the Democrats, but is an independent officially from the state of Maine. So interesting that both senators from Nevada and both from New Hampshire have broken ranks. And then Durbin, I was shocked at that. Now, what Durbin did say, I saw his comment afterwards, is that, yeah, I might support ending the filibuster, invoking cloture is what it's called, which means, yep, we can proceed and put the legislation on the floor to actually vote on. But he said he may be a nay when it comes to actually voting for the legislation. And then, of course, it's got to go back to the House. What came over from the House is not what passed. Slightly different, mainly that this would fund the government through the end of January. And what came over from the House, it's been so long ago, would only fund it through November 21st. And that ain't but 10 days, 11 days away from today. So that is where we are with respect to reopening the government. The markets reacted positively. The Dow only up 12 points right now, but earlier this morning it was up nearly 200 points. But it's the NASDAQ's where all the action is, presently up 320 points. So it's looking good. Yeah, the Dow now up 42. The Treasury, though, still Treasury, the 10-year, which is a key driver of interest rates for mortgages, automobiles, other consumer financing, still sticky at about that 4.1%, so not a whole lot of positive movement there.
We got a correction.
What's that?
Chris from Columbus on the C Spire text line.
Yeah.
Jetstream.
Okay.
Gulfstream's the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, my apologies. You're exactly right. My apologies. He's right. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Should know that as an old pilot. My apologies. Totally right. Been a while since I've had to refer to that, but those that fly airplanes are keenly aware of the jet stream. Chris is absolutely right. That is what drives the weather from the west to the east. And it is at very high altitude, of course. Not exactly what, like 40,000 feet, something like that, I think, or above, is where the jet stream hangs out. And that's what drives those fronts, those weather systems.
Typically between 30 and 43,000 feet.
Okay. Well, I was right in there on that, but I got that right at least. Thank you, Chris. Apologize for that.
In simpler terms, 6 to 9 miles up.
Okay. And that's, of course, as you know, about the altitude that commercial aircraft travel. In fact, they're required to at that altitude when they're in that level of airspace. So, but yeah, so you always know when the jet stream's strong because when you're traveling west to east, you haul butt when you get those tailwinds behind you, but you go a little slower when you're going from east to west. We're stepping aside for a break today at 11:05. Jack Carney, a student at Southern Miss, is launching a new TPUSA chapter down there. Stay with us.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Philip in Walthall County says baby boy ends in O, baby girl ends in A. Okay. But also, Rhino, isn't it true that the La and the L also indicate, aren't they gender indicating as well?
Yeah.
La, L. So, because we have El Nino, La Nina. Again, have no idea what that has to do with the jet stream and weather, but I'm sure there's some explanation. I guess that's kind of like why we name hurricanes as well. I think, obviously, to track them, keep up with them, and to refer to them. Let's see, do we allow hurricanes to be named by male, with male names now? Or do we even distinguish between that anymore?
There are multiple, or there are gender-neutral names, I believe, but you also have male and female names.
Okay. But forever it was only female.
Correct.
Right? And
that angered the feminists.
I got you. That's right. Then we have a Hugo not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
I guess, is that, I hesitate to ask, is that a male name these days? Oh, my God.
Apparently, El Nino was named after the Spanish phrase, the boy child, or Christ child, because it typically appears around December near the Christmas season.
Okay. Gotcha. Well,
apparently first documented by South American fishermen.
Okay. Well, there you go. There's a decent
Peruvian
explanation.
Fishermen, to be precise. They noticed the phenomenon in the 1600s.
I'll buy that. While we were talking about some of this crazy stuff, I think there's some sound here. I may send this to you. It's 2 minutes. But, you know, Trump's executive orders passed early on that essentially ended all this DEI stuff in schools. That was the order. You must stop all this content where you're indoctrinating our children with this nonsense, or you're going to lose federal funding. But I know you're shocked that a lot of these schools are ignoring that, circumventing that, and they think they're doing it under the radar, right, where it doesn't affect their federal funding. But inevitably, someone leaks it, and they should, and exposes it. So this is the school district. This is one in North Carolina. Oh, my gosh. And there's some training materials that have been exposed. And these are to elementary kids. First condition, focus on personal, local, and immediate. To what degree does race impact your life? Why are we asking that of elementary school kids? The ability to effectively converse about race is determined by the degree to which we can consciously place the lens of race in front of us as we examine our own personal interactions. What the heck are they talking about? It's just more of this crap that is being fed to our youngsters.
It doesn't even follow best practices for elementary school because it's pretty widely accepted that students can only learn in language they can comprehend.
Right.
So if you're throwing around all these DEI, CRT, legalese-sounding words that they throw together to make themselves sound smart,
oh, man,
that goes right over the heads of the elementary school children.
And so, by the way, this is training, as you can imagine, to the teachers. It says focus on the personal, local, and immediate. Isolate race. Normalize social construction in multiple perspectives. Monitor agreements and conditions. Establish parameters. Use a working definition of race. Examine the presence and role of whiteness. Can't we just teach reading and writing to kids in school? Why do we have to do this? This is amazing.
Because leftist ideology is so alien to reality that you have to start young and brainwash the children, or else they will never accept it because it's that bat crap crazy.
I think that's true. Let's get them when they're young and inject this into their malleable little minds, right? And we'll have little obedient Marxists running around in blue pajamas. Seriously. Here's another one. To develop a fuller understanding of race, we must first look deeply and introspectively at our own racial existence as a doorway to understand the complexities of race in America. Gee, can't we just do multiplication tables? I promise it'll serve you better in life if you can do that. As we become personally aware of our own racialized existence, what the heck is that? I thought the idea was to assimilate and view everybody the same. Isn't that what Dr. Martin Luther King told us? Judge people by their character, not the color of their skin. This instruction seems to be totally antithetical to that.
Welcome to the race politics of the modern left.
Oh, man, it's so frustrating. Well, they're being exposed, and I hope they lose their damn funding. I mean, strip them of their funding now. And you know, this is not an isolated, singular incident. You know this crap's still going on in this country. So if you guys hear anything, let us know. Serious. If you know of any of this kind of stuff still going on in Mississippi schools where the administration and the faculty are defying federal executive orders in K-12 schools, let us know. We want to expose it. I don't think this is isolated, sadly. I think there's more of this. I can't even imagine spending the time and the resources to put together materials that include this content. That just seems like such a waste of time. Such a waste of time. How about some slides with that leverage phonics to teach people how to read, youngsters how to read? We've proven that that's worked pretty well here in Mississippi. Or, like I said, just basic mathematic operations. All of that stuff's pretty valuable to a working adult. Not this. This is of no value. Except you know what happens is you just dislike other people. That's what they do. They promote that idea in their impressionable minds. It's despicable. They know that. They're taking advantage of young people. Man, oh, man. Darren and Jackson said, do what Morgan Freeman said. What was that, Darren? I know he said a lot. And he in one of his interviews, you remember, he was being interviewed by another, I don't remember who it was, a black journalist. And he said, well, look at us. How did we get here? And again, that's not to say that racism doesn't exist, but to assert that it only exists in one direction, that's totally wrong. And that we haven't made massive progress over the decades, that ignores reality as well. But we can't do that. We're still stuck in 1860 in many parts of this country. Unbelievable.
And it doesn't help that the mainstream media is seemingly complicit in spreading falsehoods about racism, because out of, say, the last 100 times the media has reported on racist or anti-Semitic or this or that graffiti, it comes out through the investigation that it's all a big hoax. Usually, the class of victim that is claiming to be oppressed and injured by said graffiti are the ones that put up the graffiti.
That's exactly right. You can't make it up, as they say, right? Now, up there in Washington, old Hakeem Jeffries and the progressive Democrats, they're raging against this deal in the Senate to end the shutdown. They're not happy about it. And they, of course, are trying to stay loyal to their progressive left. We will not support spending legislation advanced by Senate Republicans that fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. That's what he wrote on X. We will fight the GOP bill in the House of Representatives, the minority leader added. Good luck on that, Representative Jeffries. Speaking of which, we'll get into this on the other side of the break. The president has proposed an alternative to providing subsidies and federal financial assistance to those for their health care expenses. And it's not structured the way the ACA designed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare marketplaces. Little different approach. We'll dig into that on the other side of the break. We are in the Element Wealth Studios. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoe. Well, you can do anything but take over my blue suede shoe. Well, you can knock me down, step in my face, slander my name all over the place. We'll do anything that you want to do, but honey, lay off them shoes.
Welcome back, everyone.
Step on my blue suede shoe.
There you go.
Well, you can do anything but take over.
It's the king. Little blue suede shoes. That's what you need in this cold weather. Some blue suede shoes, I reckon. So we're back with you. Yeah, Darren and Jackson, a couple others said, Morgan Freeman said, stop talking about it. I remember that. You're right. He said that's the way to end racism is to stop talking about it. I guess I would hold that is a message to the left who continues to inject and insert the race pimps, essentially.
I think it was more like a message to the media because he was doing an interview
with Dan Rather, wasn't it?
I don't think it was Dan Rather.
Okay. Well, it seemed like it's one of those kind of left-leaning journalists. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it wasn't.
Mike Wallace.
Mike Wallace, that's who it was. Okay. Both from CBS, I think is where I got confused. Yeah. He says, I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You're not going to say, I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. Hear what I'm saying? Question mark. Spot on. Absolutely spot on. This was 2005, the interview with Wallace regarding the concept of Black History Month. Morgan Freeman argued against that. Every month is a month for some other, category of person, right? And that seems to, again, rather than unite and rather than equalize, seems to me like that separates, that divides. That puts people on different planes. Well, you get a month and I don't, so to speak. Can we just eliminate all the months?
Then you'd be considered racist.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I guess that'd make me misogynist and homophobic and all that stuff, because don't we have several months?
All the ists and isms and the misappropriation of the word phobia.
That's right. Well,
because that crap started in the 90s. It's homophobic. It's not they're not afraid of gay people.
Right. Exactly. Which is what a phobia is.
Disagreement is not fear.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So appreciate that.
That's a long lost battle.
Totally. Emma from Eggville said the same thing. Stop talking about it. Mr. Freeman said that. Darren and Jackson, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Shirley and Colin says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Jesus covers it all. I agree with you, Shirley. Totally agree. That's all you got to know right there. That's just a simple, straightforward, totally on-point message right there from the Lord himself. Agree. They need to put home ec classes back in high school. We were talking about how these schools have, many of which still are propagating all this DEI content and training in their pedagogy, and that's a problem. So I did say, and Ben's got a question we'll get to in a minute, but I did say before we went to break, we talk about the president's proposal to restructure the ACA exchanges. And that, of course, because of that was at the heart of the shutdown, is the enhanced subsidies in the marketplaces. The marketplaces were created as part of the Affordable Care Act. And look, on the surface, the concept isn't bad. However, I've maintained, Rhino, we should convert all insurance to marketplace-style procurement, because that only applies to the individual market. In other words, coverage that you obtain through your employer, which represents in the commercial market 88% of the total commercial market. In other words, any insurance that's not provided by government, commercial coverage, vast majority of it, some 88%, people get through their employer, group coverage. Some 10 to 12% get their coverage through what's called the individual market, which just means you buy it on your own. And you typically, that's done through the ACA exchanges. Before that, you're on your own as an individual. You just called insurance companies, brokers and agents and so forth, and purchased individual policies. You're not an employer, and you would purchase your coverage that way. So what the ACA did is it established subsidies. And the subsidies essentially come in the form of credits, tax credits, to pay directly to insurance companies, premiums to insurance companies that would be mostly paid by the federal government, and the individual buying the insurance in those exchanges, the marketplaces they're also referred to as that, they would cover the rest. And so it is true. Federal money essentially is going to the insurance companies. So the president wants to change that. What he is proposing in lieu of these premium tax credits is just to send everybody money in the form of a health savings account, also known as an HSA. Just send the money to health savings accounts for people and let them then utilize those monies to pay for their health care. Doesn't really get into a lot of details, by the way. He just said that I'm recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare, in all caps, be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care. So he says that takes the money from the big bad insurance companies. It's not clear whether or not the money under this proposal, the money that would be sent to some sort of accounts, kind of like SNAP benefits. You get some sort of account that can only be used to pay for health-related expenses. It's not clear whether or not you could use that to buy insurance, or, as is currently the case with HSAs, you can only use those monies to pay for direct patient care. You pay the provider directly for your care, and insurance covers anything kind of over and above that. That's a proposal that's been floated as far as expanding availability of HSAs and the amount, because there's some limits on how much you can contribute to those and your employer, because it's tax-free. Any contributions you make are pre-tax. So he's proposing that model, but again, it's light on details at this point. As opposed to giving people money to go buy insurance, essentially it goes directly to the insurance company. He's saying, we're going to give you a health savings account. You go buy your own health care, but not clear if that means buy insurance, by direct patient care, combination of the two. He does say hundreds of billions of dollars. Just to be clear, it's including the enhanced subsidies, it's $120 billion a year. That's what the premium tax credits cost the taxpayers. $120 billion a year. That works out to about $5,000 a year per enrollee, because there's 24 million enrolled in the program. It's not clear whether or not these direct payments that he's proposing to people to go pay for their own health care, if it would be structured the way the ACA subsidies are, which is it's based on your income. You get more help if your income's lower, less help if your income's higher. Not clear at this point. And then, he's very critical of the coverage sold in the exchanges. It's absolutely true, Rhino, that typically the insurance carriers that sell their products in those exchanges, it's not that the coverage is different in that it doesn't match up to, say, employer group provided coverage. There are three levels: bronze, silver, and gold, and the more expensive gold plans do have typically lower deductibles and out-of-pocket costs, and they provide a little bit more coverage. But all have to meet the federal minimum standard, which is what you always point out, that, I'm paying for a lot of stuff I'm never going to need. You're actually paying for others, as you rightfully point out, which was part of the ACA, and that drove premiums up. There's no doubt about that. So people buy their coverage there, they get those subsidies, and it limits their out-of-pocket costs. Now, I got to tell you, I ran into a couple of people online this weekend that were talking about their insurance going up, that rail against federal financial assistance. And after talking to them, you probably guess where I'm going. You know what I found out? You're a recipient of it. Didn't even know. Just buying their coverage in the exchanges, not being aware that, the taxpayers are picking up. That's why your coverage is so cheap. You get it? There's a bunch of people like that. Sadly. We're stepping aside for a break, and we'll get to Ben's question about the $2,000 tariff dividends the president proposed this weekend. Stay with us.
Strong. You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, it's all
back, everyone. It's Middays. So, just kind of wrapping up this proposal by the president to convert the subsidized marketplaces, by the way, also commonly referred to as Obamacare. But it is true that, and some insurance companies may get mad at me here, Rhino, but for the most part, it's the third-tier insurance companies that sell individual coverage in the marketplaces. For example, here in Mississippi, Blue Cross Blue Shield, which has the largest market share of commercial coverage, does not sell their individual coverage in the exchanges. Now, why is that important, and why typically is insurance viewed as not good? Two reasons. I mean, when you start comparing policies, is stuff that one insurance company may cover in its plan, and another one doesn't. Now, again, they all got to cover a minimum set of medical treatments and drugs and so forth. So, for example, the law, the ACA, requires that wellness care is free. Now, free means you pay more for premiums. And when you go to the doctor and it's a wellness care visit, you don't pay anything. No copay, no coinsurance, no deductible. Free. The idea was get people to go more for their routine wellness care checkups and hopefully maybe find anything that's possibly wrong that you can address before it becomes a huge problem. But that ain't free. The insurance company said, well, wait, we got to pick up the total cost of that. Premiums go up. That's what's missing in this discussion. ACA says you're going to cover this and this and this and this. And so they said, okay, well, we got to raise the premiums to do that. Before then, you could buy coverage where you'd have a copay or a co-insurance, or maybe until you met your deductible, so-called wellness care you paid for. The insurance company didn't. The premiums were a lot cheaper, though, and people could make a choice. But the deal with the HSAs is something that has been talked about for a long time. The president's calling attention to that now as something that he'd like to convert this program to. But that remains to be seen, what the nuances are, how to handle that. What makes sense to me for a lot of people are HSAs with high deductible plans, or HSAs with to cover your sort of standard routine out-of-pocket medical expenses, and then catastrophic plans. That's what you can't buy anymore. That's what, and by the way, it was the Democrats that said those are junk plans, right? Because they don't cover your routine wellness visits to your primary care doctor. They only cover the $100,000 heart surgery you got to have. Right. That's pretty good to me. A lot of people would say, yeah, that works for me. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
But they said, no, those are junk plans. No, they're not. That's what people choose. So back to my point, though, the problem with the sort of third-tier carriers that sell their coverage in the exchanges is that they don't have the robust network. It's getting better. It's improved that, say, Blue Cross does in Mississippi. Now, what does that mean? The average person, when they go to the doctor and they have insurance, and it's in whatever services were just rendered to them are covered by insurance, they want to walk out, maybe pay a copay or a small amount on their deductible. They want to walk out knowing the physician, the clinic, the provider will file for the claim on their insurance and reimburse them directly, rather than, we don't take your insurance, you got to pay today, you got to file it, and you got to wait 2 or 3 months sometimes to get reimbursed. That usually earns the negative marks for insurance. Setting up these networks of providers that accept insurance is extremely difficult. And the reality is they don't want 40 different insurance companies. They don't want to deal with all of them. It's a pain in the butt. They want to deal with a small select number. And though the exchanges on paper look like such a great idea, the fact is the vast majority of the big carriers in this country that have robust networks don't participate. In this state, for example, The biggest carrier doesn't participate. And they're the biggest carrier because they got the most robust network. You'd have a hard time finding any physician in Mississippi that doesn't accept Blue Cross, for example. There's some, but most providers, because that's what most people have, because they got most of the market. So you can buy the coverage. Now, again, it has improved a lot. All right, Ben, and I'll get to this later in the program, the $2,000 dividend check, I don't think it's a good idea, Ben. And I will tell you this, that right after the president announced it, not long after that, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent was on one of the Sunday TV shows. He said, I think that's going to come in the form, he corrected it, or he clarified it, I should say. It's going to come in the form of tax breaks. And he started listing out the tax breaks, tax cuts that were already implemented and signed into law in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. He said overtime and tips and increased standard deduction. So I don't know what all that means, honestly. It's a little confusing. I don't think it would be a good deal, though. I think it would fuel inflation. We're stepping aside for Fox News, SuperTalk News. Jack Carney from Southern Miss setting up the Turning Point USA chapter is next.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio. It's a Monday. That means Ricky Matthews, SuperTalk Outdoors, comes your way at 12:05. But right now, it's Jack Carney. Jack is a student at Southern Miss. He's the events coordinator for the Southern Miss chapter of Turning Point USA. Hey, Jack, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. So let's talk about your story. How long has the Turning Point USA chapter been in existence at Southern Miss?
So the TPUSA chapter was started last year by Taylor Sledge. She's a senior this year, and she's about to move on, but I'm a freshman incoming, and so this is my first year to get involved, and I've listened and followed Charlie Kirk for a long time now. It's been I've loved what he's had to say. And in the wake of his death, I felt, really empowered and inspired to get involved, especially on campus, because we know that universities predominantly are a liberal population. And so I feel like it's my job to spread and continue what Charlie began. So.
Yeah, awesome. So you are the events. You're listed as the events coordinator, and you're having an event tomorrow, right, Jack? Having an event tomorrow. Tell us about that.
We are.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we've got Senator Chris McDaniel, coming to speak to our students in the Joe Paul Student Theater in the Thad Cochran Center. This will be from 12 to 3. We had originally planned for this event to be outdoors, but we had some issues that arose, and we couldn't end up doing that. But we're really looking to challenge some conflicting viewpoints we've seen from other students. So we had an event earlier this semester in October after Charlie's death. It was a memorial service, a vigil, and we had a lot of opposing viewpoints on our Instagram that just, we were threatened almost. But it's like we ought to strike while the iron is hot and hit this while it's, on top of mind. So will this be done, Jack, sort of in the format that Charlie was so well known for, where he would allow students, and in particular students that disagreed with his viewpoints, to come forward and pose questions to him or thoughts to him, which then he would respond to? Is that kind of what you're going to do here with Senator McDaniel? Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking for any disagreements we can get, and it's not necessarily out of aggression or trying to bring conflict. It's just having conversation.
Sure.
Charlie was so adamant about having talking about things we disagree upon and having the hard conversations that no one else really wants to have. And he constantly said, when we stop talking, when we stop having these conversations, that's when violence happens. Yeah. That's when people like Tyler Robinson do the things that they did. So
you talked
it's our job to have these conversations.
So a second ago you were talking about some of the hostile, I guess, reaction and comments on Instagram about your chapter. Are you expecting it to get a little heated tomorrow? And do you expect a lot of those people, those students in particular, will show up?
Yeah. I mean, we think so.
Okay.
And we really hope so as well, not to bring the conflict. That's not what we want, but so that we can show them, a little bit of light, a little bit of truth. And so, I believe we will have some of that. I hope it's not a protest at all, but I do think there will be some of those opposing ideals. So,
Jack, I agree with you. It's something we talk about on the program a lot. It seems like higher ed has been kind of the epicenter for liberal viewpoints, leftist viewpoints in this country, and that on too many of our college campuses, opposing views are just not allowed, just squashed, especially in a public type forum and setting. But this is something you're doing here at Southern Miss. Was it difficult, Jack, to get the chapter formed up and approved by the university and to get access to university facilities to hold this event tomorrow?
You know what? I've been really impressed with the University of Southern Mississippi. They have helped us along the way. Obviously, not all are the same, but so we had this event planned for outside.
Yeah.
And then we had to move it inside, and they actually offered to cover the price to move it inside. And so they've been helpful along this whole process. We're very grateful.
Okay. So do you feel like that just in your interaction and being a student there at Southern Miss, is there a feeling that the majority of the student population leans one way or another on the political spectrum?
I would say so. You can roam around campus and clearly see that. Yeah. It's a predominantly left campus.
Yeah.
And I would assume most universities are the same way.
No, that's
just because that's what professors are teaching. That's the way the culture is going. But I think what Charlie started has really kind of turned the corner a little bit and given some students an idea that they may not have had before. And so we're just trying to continue that and foster that here at the University of Southern Mississippi.
And that's what he was so good at, don't you agree, Jack, that he didn't get confrontational. He didn't shout down. He let everybody and anybody come forward and express their viewpoints and opinion. He may not agree with those, but he consumed them, and then he would react in a very respectful way. We need more of that in this country. Would you agree?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
I mean, so having multiple viewpoints, it's college campuses is where students in your age group, they should be exposed to these various viewpoints and let them think critically and make their mind up without being indoctrinated. Or even more importantly, Jack, and get you to comment on this, I've had students from other universities in the state that I've talked to have said that they're somewhat ostracized and even penalized in the classroom for their viewpoints if they conflict with that of the professor.
Yeah, they absolutely. People are receiving grades based on their viewpoints that receive, failing grades. And so we can't have that at the university. People are trying to express what they believe, and it seems like it's so one-sided. We can be conservative and then get penalized for it, but they can be liberal, and professors are rejoicing over that fact. So I don't think it should be that way at all.
So do you have a feel for how many people you expect to attend tomorrow's event, Jack?
I would say multiple hundred.
Okay. And you said you got Senator Chris McDaniel is going to be your speaker. Sir. And I think he's a person that is going to do well in that environment, honestly. Whether you agree with his viewpoints or not politically, I think he's a person that would do well with respect to allowing those who disagree with him to speak their piece, and then he'll respond to that. Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. He's probably one of the most controversial conservatives we have in the state, but I think what he has to say, he's so staunch on his conservative viewpoints that it's going to be really good for the university and our students to hear.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that he stands on truth.
Yeah.
And he's not willing to move away from that. So
do you expect to have more similar events, Jack, with future speakers coming in and conducting this same sort of Q&A session?
Absolutely. That's the plan. I know next Wednesday, we have Shane Winnings. He's an Afghan war vet, a former police officer, and a preacher, and he's on his college campus tour right now. America Needs Godly Men. And so we've got him next week on Wednesday from 5 to 7. But we're also looking to continue this next semester, and hopefully we can do these events outside and foster more of those opposing viewpoints, like from foot traffic and everything. So,
Jack, how are you promoting the event? How are you getting the word out?
We've got an Instagram page, TPUSA at USM, and also TPUSA at Bayou. We're also trying to do some flyers here on campus, and word of mouth goes a long way as well. So
sure.
Just however we can get the word out, that's the plan. We're really mainly trying to focus on students because that's the goal, but we are allowing an outside audience as well.
Okay. Share with our audience again, Jack, the time and place tomorrow.
So tomorrow it will be in the Joe Paul Student Theater located in the Thad Cochran Center. It will be held from 12 to 3 p.m. He is expecting all kinds of political ideologies, so bring your disagreements. That's what we want. And come ready, come prepared. He's ready and prepared as well. So,
Jack, we appreciate you coming on Middays to talk to us about this. I'm sure we'll be talking again. You're an impressive and an articulate young man, so you do well tomorrow. We'll check in on you, man. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Folks, we're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Back with you in the Element Wealth studio. So about these health savings accounts, the president said, he correctly points out, those were expanded in the big, beautiful bill. So why do they have to be expanded? It's because there's a tax feature that contributions by you and your employer to, if you have an employer, to HSAs are done pre-tax. Just like when you pay premiums for your health insurance and your employer covers some of your premium, that doesn't affect your taxes either. In fact, your premium, your investment, your contribution to your premiums is used to reduce your income before taxes. That's why they're called pre-tax. The amount your employer contributes to your premiums is not income to you. Here's something, Rhino, I think we could implement to help the cost of coverage immediately. And this isn't something that's brand new. This has been talked about by people who follow and make recommendations on healthcare policy for a long time. There's a disparity between the individual market and the group market. So what I was just discussing, where your contributions to your health insurance through your employer are pre-tax, your employer's contributions are not taxable to you. Also, a feature of group coverage. But in the individual market, you don't get the pre-tax treatment. There's a disparity. And that would affect independent contractors, people who work for small businesses who don't offer coverage. I mean, there's a number of people who buy coverage in the individual market that don't work for employers. And by the way, by law, any employer with more than 50 employees has to offer affordable coverage, or they pay big penalties to the government. That went into effect as part of the Affordable Care Act. Honestly, most already were. An employer with more than 50 people, you know why? Because a good old market. It's a competitive issue. If you don't do it, but your competitors are, well, they're not coming to work for you. It's a huge, that's a huge factor in people's decision making about employment. Is the benefit package offered by the employer. And because premiums have shot up so much, that's the big issue for everybody is what is my health care going to cost? And so people evaluate that and consider that in their employment decisions. Not so much when they're right out of college and they're young, because I didn't have insurance. I just played the odds. I couldn't afford whatever the hell it was, $80 a month back then, something like that, and just elected to go without it and took the risk as a young person. I think a lot of people do. The ACA, as you recall, the idea was we're gonna force young, healthy people to buy insurance, whether they want it or not. And what do I mean by force? It's that if you don't, you're going to have to pay a penalty. That was at the heart of the Supreme Court case. Is it a mandate? Is it a penalty? Or is it a tax, the mandate? And ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled, to uphold that. But then that was taken away. That was revoked in 2017. And the truth is, the insurance companies were mad about it's called the individual mandate. Remember, it started out as $250, then it went to I don't remember exactly, but $600. It scaled all the way up to $1,250, as I recall, originally when passed. And the insurance companies were all mad because they, of course, advocated and supported the Affordable Care Act. Why wouldn't they? Because the government was going to require that everybody bought what they sold or pay stiff penalties. And they were mad because the penalties got watered down in the final bill. Originally, they were going to be so high that, even a young person was going to say, I'm not paying whatever it was, a $5,000 a year penalty. I'm going to go buy insurance at $200 a month. And that was the expectation. And the reason it got watered down is because Ted Kennedy died. He died in December of 2009.
Technically, the mandate is still in place.
Technically, but
it's just set at zero.
Right. It's not enforced. It's not enforced because it's zero. Right. You're
because
right.
The changes passed under reconciliation instead of with 60 votes in the Senate.
That's right. So they couldn't just completely repeal it. They just simply, using the reconciliation rules and the money part of it, reduced the amount. But remember, it started out as $250 and it scaled originally. But I recall vividly studying H.R. 3200, which was the House bill that got sent to the Senate that that's what the Democrats really wanted to enact, and the insurance company supported, and it had a ridiculous penalty. I'm telling you, I think it was $5,000 or something. And Ted Kennedy died. They lost their filibuster-proof majority. Remember, Scott Brown, the Republican, gets elected in Massachusetts, of all states. And it was because people in Massachusetts had already dealt with Romney Care, and Obamacare somewhat modeled after that. And they said, this crap doesn't work in Massachusetts. And they put a Republican in there to stop the bill. And so I know this sounds crazy, but we ended up settling for a much less onerous bill that came out of the Senate, passed in reconciliation. And one of the things that was less onerous was the penalty. So the idea was everybody is going to have insurance, which would, in fact, drive premiums down, but it would force people to buy something whether they wanted it or not or pay a penalty, which is un-American in my view. And but the Supreme Court upheld that, and then you're right, the mandate got reduced to $0. So it's not even in place anymore. But that's what's going on. The HSA idea, I think, is a good one, but it's going to stop short of, unless you go buy coverage. It needs to be combined with returning to the option to buy catastrophic coverage. That's what we need. That would drive everybody's price down, and would be less money going to the insurance companies, which I know the president wants to do. So Ben from Madison, though, who asked us about that $2,000 dividend, again, keep in mind that the Treasury Secretary said, yeah, we're going to do that in the form of tax cuts. And then he started articulating the tax cuts that have already been passed. Maybe there are going to be some adjustments to those. The overtime exemption, the tax on tips, the increased standard deduction for seniors, all of those were, of course, provisions that reduce the tax bite on lots of Americans. And that's what the Treasury Secretary said in follow-up to the president. So I'm not sure exactly where the disconnect is, but certainly the implied policy, the president proposal put on the table was that we're going to send everybody $2,000 checks like we got during the COVID era, which, of course, fueled inflation because everybody had money in their pocket and they wouldn't spend it, and that money was printed out of thin air, essentially, borrowed. I don't think it'd be a good idea, and I appreciate the president for saying, yeah, we're taking in what amounts to about $300 billion of tariff revenue, but if we just send dividends out, we just got to go borrow the money. I mean, so you're shuffling the shells here on the table. It's not like typical dividend where, hey, we have profits, we have a surplus, we're going to reimburse, I guess, our investors here and remunerate them. That's not what we're doing here.
In simplest terms, it would be profit sharing, but that has a whole different.
That's different than dividends.
That's different than dividends.
Yeah. Dividends are declared. But you're not going to declare dividend as a private company.
You boil it down, you're sharing in the profits, the success of the business. It's just profit sharing has a different thing attached to it.
Profit sharing is more predictable and more permanent in nature, whereas dividends are random. Hey, the board says we looked at the income statement, we made a bunch of money, boom, we're declaring a dividend. Now, you can get preferred stock that has an automatic dividend on it. And I'm getting a little into the nuances here, but the bottom line is when you're running $2 trillion deficits, it's kind of hard to call sending out stimulus checks a dividend. Yeah. I get what the president's trying to do. He's trying to get people to support his tariff strategy at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. And he's absolutely right. We're taking in $300 billion a year, but we're still running $2 trillion deficits, unfortunately.
And if the Supreme Court strikes it down, we're going to have to pay it back.
Yeah. Seemed like at a minimum, maybe we ought to wait to see where that goes. But the Treasury Secretary said, yeah, it's going to be in the form of tax breaks, if you will, tax cuts. I don't like to say tax break because I don't believe there is such a thing as a tax break. That assumes all money starts with the government. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
From theseabrook.com.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Diablo Motors had a hell of a sale downtown yesterday. Word got around, no money down, take years and years to pay. When I got there, the lot was bare, but the salesman said, hold on. For a little cash, I got a two-tone hatch out behind my barn. If the devil danced in empty pockets, he'd have a ball in mine. With a 9-foot grand, a 10-piece band, and a 12-girl chorus line.
So up there in New York, the real estate market was predicted is in chaos. Bidding wars in the suburbs. Everybody's getting the hell out of New York City because this fool they just elected mayor wants to absolutely tax the ever-loving oxygen out of anybody that's got any amount of wealth. And of course, skim off the top and send it out the door in programs. Unbelievable. That is just so predictable what's going on there. And, of course, the states, certainly the states of Texas and Florida where there's no income tax, and Tennessee as well, they are recruiting these wealthy people that don't agree, by the way, with Mondami or leftism, and are looking for a new home. I'd like to see some of them move here. Now, I know a lot of people said, yeah, don't bring that liberal ideology here. They don't think like that. There are more of them in New York City that think like us than there are here, just based on the numbers. So those kind of people you want. They're trying to get the hell out of a place that, A, doesn't appreciate them for them essentially financially powering the entire city and state, and where their opportunities are going to be obstructed. We want them to thrive and to invent and innovate and create, produce, contribute, but not in New York. Nope. We just want to take your assets you've already earned and give them to other people at the end of the day. Mose asks, if the SCOTUS votes against Trump's authority to place tariffs, wouldn't the government have to refund the money back to the companies that paid it? There goes that $2,000 check. Yeah, Mose, so it is nuanced and controversial because there are different types of tariffs, and it remains to be seen which of those the Supreme Court would strike down. So there's the sort of punitive tariffs, and then there's the reciprocal tariffs. And it remains to be seen. But, yes, that is certainly a possibility that some or all of that would have to be refunded. And we'll have to kind of hang in there for that and see what happens. I understand what the president's trying to do is engender support for his tariff policies. He's a huge believer in that and believes it's critical to his overall economic strategy and goals. And I think in sending money out to people that he says is because we've collected all this money from tariff revenues that we've collected, that maybe that would influence people into feeling positive about tariffs. Yeah, I think that's what's going on there. I will say that I'm a bit surprised at what looks to me like to be a ramp up in opposition to profit in this country. A lot of people are really mad at the insurance companies because they make a profit. And so I guess my question is, are you advocating then to people who are mad about insurance companies making profit, are you advocating for transitioning to a government-provided health insurance model? That's what the Democrats have been lobbying for, the so-called public option, forever. And that actually was part of the bill, the original ACA bill that, again, couldn't get through the Senate because of Ted Kennedy's untimely death. But it did have a public option in it, which means that you could buy Medicare even if you weren't eligible and qualified for it. Here's the problem with that. If we all converted to Medicare and we just ended the private health insurance industry, or as Rhino, you said this morning, it would really only be palatable and affordable for the very wealthy, which is what we have in foreign countries that have socialized medicine, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can get concierge medicine and concierge, but that's a fraction of the population, relatively speaking.
And it's way more expensive than even the Cadillac plans you can buy now in America.
Yeah. So if we ended up with that model where the vast majority of us are enrolled in Medicare, essentially, and Medicare continued to reimburse at its current level, the entire healthcare industry in the United States would absolutely crash based on the reimbursement levels from Medicare. Either that or every doctor and nurse would take a significant cut in pay. So would every pharmaceutical company, every medical device manufacturer, every hospital, every clinic, all the above. If you're reimbursing at Medicare rates, which are 75, 80% commercial rates, that would create a huge shock that would ripple throughout the healthcare industry. So it sounds good on paper. Yeah, I can just go get Medicare, but the economics of that are a little bit more complex. And so I don't think that's viable, but I'm just surprised that people are coming out and demonizing profit. That's what the left does. That's what Democrats do. So I would ask the question, how much should the private insurance companies make? Well, I can tell you, because I did research this, the top 7 make under $40 billion a year. Now, that sounds like a lot, but the healthcare industry is $4.6 trillion. So it's less than 1% of the healthcare industry. And I asked, and it's about 3%, by the way, of their top line revenue on average. So the question is, how much should they make? Is 3% too much? That's Kroger. That's Walmart margins, by the way. That's what they make, 3%. Contrast that to NVIDIA. NVIDIA made more in a quarter and a half than the entire health insurance industry makes in a year. Their net margins, not 3%, 63%. Why are we demonizing NVIDIA's profit? Not that I want to. I think that's perfectly fine. I applaud them. People are willing to pay the price for what they make, and they're able to command 63% net income margins. The insurance company, on the other hand, 3%. An insurance company profit is regulated. It's the only industry on the planet. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Only industry in America, because there is no profit in a lot of other economic systems in other areas of the world. But in this country, I don't know that there's another industry that literally has a regulation on their profit. What do I mean by that? The law, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, it includes what's called the medical loss ratio requirement, which says, hey, insurance companies, in the large group market, 85% of the premiums you take in, you got to pay out in claims to healthcare providers. In all the other markets, individual and the small group market, 80%. You have to pay that out. And if you don't, you have to send rebates out to your customers. Since the law was passed, $14 billion of rebates have been issued. I don't know that Blue Cross of Mississippi, our largest carrier, has ever experienced that situation where they had to send rebate checks. And look, it's small amounts per subscriber because you're talking about millions of people. But that's actually law. Also, I know that people get upset about the high compensation, so much so that one fool killed the United Health Care, assassinated him in broad daylight, mad about insurance companies and their practices, and held him personally responsible for that as the CEO and his compensation package. But you know that you can only deduct $500,000 a year for tax purposes of an insurance company CEO pay. No other industry has that kind of tax feature, that tax limitation. Only insurance. That's all part of the Affordable Care Act. The problem I think we have is that there are a lot of people, even on the right, that like the reforms in insurance, but they don't like the fact that it caused all the costs to go up. I don't either. I'd like to repeal all those reforms and give us more options so that we don't have to buy, as you like to say, coverage I'm never going to need. I don't need fertility coverage, for example, and OBGYN services and crazy stuff like that for a biological male, despite what the left thinks. It cannot get pregnant, ovulate, does not have those anatomical parts. Therefore, they can't be in need of any health care. Even though the AMA did its best to blur the lines on that, did it not? Oh, we don't need to teach special sort of education to our budding physicians in medical school to treat females different than males. You can't make it up how insane that is. Gee whiz. Final segment on this Monday is after this break.
But you don't know what he means to me, Jolene. Jolene, 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 Jolene. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take him just 'cause you can.
Up of Mississippi.
Are we going to do this? Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. So Jeff in Grenada says, do energy companies get profit regulated? Well, they're regulated utilities, so they're kind of quasi. They're private companies, but they have they're regulated monopolies essentially. So yeah, of course, but typical company like an insurance company, they don't have any kind of monopoly. They're not granted sort of certain monopoly type features, if you will. In the case of a regulated utility, they do, and it has to do with the fact that otherwise we'd have power lines all over the place from multiple providers of electricity, as an example, pipelines and so forth. So it's a little different, but I get your point, Jeff. And the only point I'm making is before Obamacare, there was no requirement that an insurance company had to pay out a certain amount of its premium revenue in the form of claims. That changed, whether you like that or not. And of course, what did that do, Rhino? Caused premiums to go up. All this stuff is the reason. That's the only point I'm trying to make here. It's things like that. The fact that you can't charge older, sick people significantly more than you can charge young, healthy people, which you could before Obamacare, that drove premiums up. The fact that they're no longer can have lifetime or annual limits on the amount of benefits, that drove premiums up. The fact that you're paying for OBGYN services, that drove premiums up. This is all because the Democrat mindset is, well, those people don't know what they're doing when they're buying insurance. We got to protect them. And what they did is your protection made us all hit the hip to pay more. People aren't as stupid as you think they are, Democrats. You think you're like intellectually superior because you're in government. And that's a farce. Man, oh man. Mike in Gulfport says, I'm on Medicare, and if I don't have a really good supplement, I'd be broke with the problems my wife and I have had in the last 2 years. I'm convinced by listening to my children that they would be better off now if we had not changed anything. Government interference in our daily lives and decisions seems to always end up making things worse. I agree with you, Mike, and the only point I'm making is we did get improvements in coverage with the limits on out-of-pocket costs and the no denial for pre-existing conditions and the medical loss ratio and stay on your parents' plan till you're 26, no lifetime or annual caps, by the way, which was the primary cause of bankruptcies in this country. All that got addressed. It's just that it costs money. You can't go to the insurance company and say, hey, guess what, guys? You got to cover way more than you did. You're on the hook for way more than you were pre-Obamacare and not expect the premiums to go up. I mean, that is so predictable, and it was such a lie when the Democrats said, oh, no, this will cause premiums to go down. Wait, you're telling the people who are paying the bills are going to have to pay more, and you're telling me that's going to cause them to drop the cost? What planet are you on? And that's where we are today. So somebody did ask about earlier association plans. Yeah, is there a way to group people in order for a person to get cheaper insurance coverage for example, certain associations of trades? There is. It's extremely complicated. It's regulated at the state level. It's called AHPs, Association Health Plans, where you pool your resources, multiple small employers or self-employed individuals with, quote, a commonality of interest, for example, in the same trade or industry or even a geographic area, they form an association. But it's so tightly regulated. And this is another situation where the Democrats say, we can't let you do that. You don't know what you're doing. No, you should let them do that. And by the way, you would get the favorable tax treatment as well, as opposed to buying straight in the individual market. That, by the way, you remember when John McCain did the old famous thumbs down? Essentially, what he thumbs down primarily was this ability to create these association health plans without a whole bunch of government restriction, and to allow, by the way, the return of so-called skinny plans, just catastrophic coverage. I'll take care of everything else. I just need insurance in case I have some sort of super expensive medical problem. And that's what John McCain thumbs down. It wasn't full repeal of the law, but it was returning to the days where you had way more options and you could get more affordable coverage, such as, I just want to pay for catastrophic coverage. If I got to go for primary care, wellness, I'll pay for that out of pocket or with my HSA. But no, McCain is just defiant, couldn't stand Trump. Remember the famous thumbs down there on the floor, Rhino? I don't think I'll ever forget that. Well, that smug damn look on his face. He was so proud of himself, right, for doing something that would have helped a whole bunch of us out. In your situation, you talk about that all the time. You'd be able, as a younger, healthy person, to buy coverage that's more suitable to you, rather than what the government says you got to have and pay a serious increased premium for it. Well, we are out of here today because it is a Monday. It's Ricky Matthews, SuperTalk Outdoors, coming your way next. We're back in the Element Wealth studio again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
You and everyone we knew to believe, to sharing what was true. I said, that's all days long.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.